And now, the Sleephawk Worldwide Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brandon Staten and Tyler Hansbrough.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sleephawk Worldwide Podcast. This is Sleep Dog with the Big Hulk.
What's up, everybody? It's the Big Hulk. Great weekend for all Tar Heel fans out there. We are headed to Hollywood. I'm excited. Some big wins for us, and we have a great pod coming to you.
Meaning the Tar Heels, Sleephawk Worldwide, we're right behind it, I'm sure. You know, there's somebody out there just cooking up a deal for us. But yeah, this is March Madness, guys. We kind of were sitting here before the pod trying to figure out what to talk about. And what else will we talk about? I mean, got a lot of storylines. You got Kentucky losing to Oakland. You got Wisconsin losing to James Madison. Those happen, I guess, to be the biggest upsets of the first weekend. And of course, guess who the beneficiaries of those were? None other than Duke and NC State. We wound up playing those guys and subsequently winning. We're fresh off James Madison just looking like school of the blind out there. I mean, those guys didn't have a prayer against Duke. I don't think they could have beaten Virginia. Oakland thought they got a few whistles called, did not go their way that might have helped the old Wolfpack down the stretch, but that makes up for a lifetime of what the Wolfpack would tell you missed calls. So this is the Haley's Comet of Wolfpack basketball, because you don't see this about once every lifetime. So we'll get into all that. Carolina, of course, meanwhile, just keeps rolling. Convincing win in the first game, convincing win in the second game, and I'm getting ready for the third one. So we're gonna go through all this. We'll go through where we stand in the Sleephawk Worldwide bracket. A lot of you guys took us real seriously on that enter 25 times. I mean, hell, I think we've got 5 people in there, and everybody's in there 100. Everybody's in there 25 times. But yeah, let's start with the Heels, Big Hawk. So took care of business against Wagner, and then again against Michigan State, and I got to feel like we're in a good spot right now.
Yeah, and I just want to say it's good to be back in the tournament, making another deep tournament run. This team has been fun to watch all year. And one reason getting a number one seeded was so important and is important for making a deep tournament run and somewhat gives the team advantage, or the number one seeds have an advantage because they can go ahead and scout the next game. Okay. They don't have to solely focus directly on that first game, because the odds, you're likely more athletic. You're better than the 16th seed in every aspect of the game. Now, I will give Wagner a lot of credit. They came out, they were disciplined. They actually played much better than I thought. The Council kid can hoop, their point guard, but they only had 7 players. They're extremely limited. And it's not like I think we had our best game. I do think there was a lot of really good momentum that was created from that first game against Wagner. And I think Jalen Withers is a guy who I think the Wagner game was particularly really important for him, because he came in and he provided such a spark for this team. And actually, when he came in and played the way he did, I felt like it was contagious, and I could see our energy, our spirit, and everything just went up just a little bit. Okay, went up. He turned the knob, and everybody started getting it going once he was playing the way Jalen was playing. He's athletic. He was making a huge impact on the game, and also what I love about the way he was playing, there wasn't a huge emphasis on him scoring, even though he did score and he had a great game. He arguably had one of his. I say that, and he probably had I think one of his career highs or one of his best games of the year. But he did it by getting rebounds, pursuing the ball, being aggressive on the offensive boards. And, he made a lot of winning basketball plays, and I think that gave him a lot of confidence, because going into the Michigan State game, I really felt like Jay Witt had a great game. And we'll briefly cover the Wagner game. Listen, we're a much better team than Wagner, and athletically we're bigger. We have better players, size, everything. every aspect of the game, we had an advantage, and we didn't have to show up and play our A game. We just didn't, we couldn't show up and absolutely no show. That's the only way we lose. And we did what we needed to do. But if I'm looking at the Wagner game, I really felt like it gave Jalen Withers a lot of confidence, and I'm all for that, because whenever you have bench players that come in and make an impact on the game, they can be a huge X factor. Now we'll jump to the Michigan State game. Now, first of all, Sleep, I was super excited for this game. This is what March is about, okay? You have Michigan State and North Carolina going head-to-head in the second round of the tournament. This is big-time basketball. Two Goliaths going at it. And I was pumped. I thought this was going to be a great challenge. And listen, Michigan State overall had a bad year, okay? But let's keep in mind that they were a preseason top 5 team. They have talent. They have players. They have size. And they're very well coached. They didn't meet the expectations in regular season, but they were clicking at the end of the year. And also, they had a great game against Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State, they couldn't throw it in the ocean, and they haven't been able to shoot or find outside shooting all year. But a lot of that was due to the way that Michigan State plays defense. They are a tough, grinded-out team. They dominate. They apply a lot of pressure defensively. They dominate the boards just like a typical Tom Izzo team, and that's what he does best. They're very well coached, and they were clicking, okay? And I know a lot of people got a little tight, like, oh, this is a tough second. So what? You've got to beat the good teams to win it all. And I thought this was a great challenge. But what I'm most impressed about the Michigan State game is we came out, we took a haymaker. We got in the hole. We took a haymaker. Guys, we were on the ropes. I mean, we were, one or two. It
wasn't looking good early.
No, yeah. I mean, if we didn't turn it around, that could have been a blowout. Now, what I love about what we did, and you got to give Hubert and the coaching staff a lot of credit, they made adjustments. And that is like the growth right there, like that switch and that adjustments that he made, like he's not getting the credit he deserves for what he's done this year. Like hitting the portal, getting this team to play the way they are. They have spirit. They're playing hard. We're getting contributions from everybody. People are playing their role. He's done a great job all year. And also that in-game adjustment, Michigan State had a game plan of going inside against us. They were going to post our guards, and they were also going to post Harrison Ingram, and they were going to back us down and just kind of bully ball us. They started out that way, and then we started making that post-entry catch difficult. We started pushing them out. We didn't let them catch the ball where they wanted. We started getting back to playing hard-nosed defense, which, by the way, our success is going to be dictated on how we bring it defensively. Sometimes our best offense has been our best defense. And we started that game out taking horrible shots. I loved how Armando came out with the mindset, I'm going to attack, I'm going to be the aggressor. But we didn't find ways to get the ball inside. We settled for outside shooting. And then all of a sudden, when we brought it defensively, we made those adjustments, we started taking better shots, and we played with pace. I've always said, and I know some people will argue with me, listen, the Big Ten, they don't see teams that can run like Carolina. When we play with pace, they don't know what to do because they've never seen it. And when we run like we do, when we take good shots, we get the ball inside, whether that's a post entry or feeding Armando down low when he has good position and he runs, or if it's through penetration movement, I think we need to go inside out. And what that does is it really sucks the defense in, and it allows guys to get open shots on the outside, which is critical, especially during the tournament. When you can get open looks and a lot of your shots come within the offense and aren't forced and they're in the flow of the game, I think that makes us a deadly team, and our defense allows us to do that. And that switch in the game, you could see the energy, you could see like the atmosphere in the Spectrum Center just kind of change, and it was a great thing to watch. And I'm really happy for these guys. And we had we had some great bench play, and you got to give our bench credit, which we've taken some heat and some criticism for our lack of depth. But I want to tell you, Seth Trimble came in there. He had some highlight blocks, and those were big-time plays, and those have a huge impact on the game. Listen, Tyson Walker for Michigan State, their guard, he can get explosive. Anytime he hit a few buckets, we put Trimble on him, messed up his rhythm. I trust Seth Trimble on any guard in the country. I think he is an elite defender. I think his role on this team is kind of underrated, and he never gets the credit he deserves. But his energy, the way he plays defense, and his impact on the game is huge. And also, Jalen Withers, he came in off the bench. He got some offensive rebounds, and you could see that they were taking Jalen Withers, man, and doubling Armando in the post. Okay, now what I like about what Jay Witt did with this is his movement off the ball. He saw when his man went to Armando to double him in the post, he cut right to the rim. And late in the game, he got us a huge bucket down low right around the rim when we needed one. And also, he had a lot of tips. He had his hands, on a lot of loose balls. He was huge. He was making winning plays. And also, Jalen Washington, he came in. His stats aren't going to blow you away, but he provided us with great defense. And that's about as aggressive as I've seen him play. And sometimes it takes, somebody getting pissed off, somebody getting pushed, somebody getting shoved to really flip that switch. He came in immediately. He provided us with energy. That's about as energetic as I've seen him play. And also, he played with a purpose. All right. He didn't get taken advantage of on a pick and roll. He switched out on the guards. He kept the ball in front of him and used his length and athleticism to change and make shots difficult. And he rebounded. That was huge. So we got to give the bench credit. And listen, RJ, he's gonna keep hitting big shots. And late in the game, if there's anybody in the country I want shooting those free throws, it's RJ. He is a great weapon. And Armando, you got to give him credit. He dominated the game. He is a big dog. He is a top dog. He came out aggressive, totally dominated Michigan State, which, by the way, is not easy to do, especially the way that Tom Izzo coaches. He is a savvy coach, and he's not going to give you anything easy because he's going to scout you. There's going to be a game plan, and they're going to execute it. He has a lot of experience. So you got to give Armando a lot of credit. He demanded the ball. He played aggressive, and I thought he was a huge reason why we won this game. And they deserve a lot of credit. I'm happy for this team. Listen, the job's not finished yet. There's a lot of work to be done, but they should be happy with what they accomplished and know that, hey, listen, we're not content. We've still got work to do, and there's the end goal isn't met, but they brought it against Michigan State, and I'm proud of them.
Yeah, they looked great. You gotta be happy with, essentially an average margin of victory over 20 points a game in the first two rounds of the tournament. I don't care if the first guy only had four players on their team. They were definitely undermanned. Had to play with a lot of heart. But you're holding your opponents into the 60s. You're scoring up around 85, 90. Like, that's where we want to be. You know what I mean? I think Armando is playing some of the best basketball he's played all season. Statistically, you don't see as many of those games that he had, maybe a year or two ago where he's getting, 20 points and 12 boards every night. But like, it's just a lot different. His presence, I think, you mentioned Jalen Washington. It's interesting to me because I think, assuming Jalen Washington sticks around and he's the kind of athlete that could theoretically go in the draft. But if he sticks around, I think everybody's going to become very much aware of who he is next year. I think he has all the tools. He's just behind Baycott. And other than that, I think he's going to explode. He's hit some nice like mid-range jump shots, and it's a very, very small sample size. But his sort of fluidity to his game is really intriguing to me. You're right about Trimble. Trimble is sort of the glue guy, getting 17 solid minutes off the bench. Withers had a great game. He's from the Charlotte area. Before the game, to your point, I was just looking while you were talking about it. Just inside 10 minutes to go in the first half, Michigan State pulled ahead by 12. And that was the point at which you were like, oh boy, like they were starting to go on a little bit of run. I think the game had been close. They were up 10 and then we closed it down to 5 or 6 and then they get up 12 and you're like, dude, a couple more buckets and this thing's going to get out of hand. We're going to find ourselves down 20 and we go into the half up 9. And it was like we started kind of going on that run, and it was a night and day difference in the confidence and all that sort of stuff. And it was just a fun game to watch from a Carolina perspective, and we got the lead and we pulled away. And, that's something that we've been, talking a lot about closing games and finishing games. I think you're absolutely right about Hubert Davis and the coaching staff. There's a lot to be said about that. I think that these first two games opened about as well as you could. That opening line was 3.5 against Michigan State. And we were chatting about it prior to the game. Our buddy John from Jimmy Seafood texted us and asked how we feel. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I know that Michigan State's had a bad season, but they're Michigan State, and the line's 3.5. And I feel like line should be a hell of a lot more than that. And then we get out, first 10 minutes of the game, and I'm like, oh boy. And yeah, we righted the ship, and shots started falling, and away we went. So who do we wind up with next?
We have the winner of Grand Canyon and Alabama.
And that game is, as we're recording right now, it is 28-28 with 2:27 to go in the first half. We'll take either one of them. Clemson, Baylor's getting close, of course. But yeah, so I mean, I think you're exactly right. You're right where you want to be. You're at Sweet 16 for the 31st time. The thing that was crazy to me is I didn't realize somehow that we've never lost to Michigan State in the tournament. I mean, we played some big games against Michigan State over the years. We're 6-0 against those guys.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm pretty superstitious too. So I'm like, shit, man. They started showing them graphics. I'm all nervous already because it's Carolina game in the tournament. And, they're showing these graphics about how we've never lost to them. And I'm like, man, it's like when they say the field goal kicker hasn't missed all season or guy's perfect from the line. And you're like, all right, buddy, could you just save that sort of stuff till after the game? My dad sends me a text message, told me he parlayed them to cover the spread and go over. And I'm like, Jesus. And sure enough, man, he did. He sent me to bed. I think he won like $20. It was great.
Bet with his heart. I love it. But sleep. Yeah. I'm like you, and I gotta say this because it kind of reminds me. I was working the radio with Jones, and late in the game when RJ was at the free throw line. Listen, RJ's at automatic. There's not a free throw he shot all year where I thought he was going to miss. And if there's anybody I want at the line, I want RJ at the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say on the radio, RJ's just almost automatic. But anybody that knows all these people that call these games, as soon as you say this guy's just not going to miss these free throws, it is just a jinx from the gods, the basketball gods. We will humble you. He will miss both.
Yeah.
And I got tired. I was like, I don't want to say anything because I'm so superstitious. And I wanted to beat Michigan State so bad. And also the other thing is like a lot of Carolina fans got a little tight. And they're like, man, this is a tough game. So what? Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
You're going to beat Michigan State's ass. You got to beat somebody to win the whole thing. And why not just knock down just take out a top dog? It's more appealing. And also, like, there's more to be said about the path. I don't want to beat a bunch of mid-majors. I want to take the top dogs down. Line them up. We'll take whoever. The path is never easy if you want to win the whole thing. But, we got the job done, Sleep.
Yeah, speaking of that, wanting to beat the top dogs. I think most Carolina fans are, like, sitting here. At least I am. Gosh, I just see in my shirt. I mean, dude, this is my kid. Like, just barfing all over me all day. I just saw it in the YouTube screen. It looks like I'm lactating. So State wins, and I'll be honest, dude. I hate NC State. I hate Duke, but State's on a hell of a run. I mean, if for their fan base, good for you guys. I mean, look, it's an exciting time for the area to have everybody in it. But of course, they wound up playing Oakland when they would have wound up with Kentucky. We'll get to Kentucky in a second. Would have wound up with a real tough draw against Kentucky, wind up with a not tough draw against Oakland and just a dog fight. I thought, like I said a little bit ago, I thought some calls went the wrong way in that one. And then James Madison beats Wisconsin, and then Duke winds up playing James Madison. I mean, are you kidding me? The two biggest upsets in the entire thing by far, in my opinion. And they wind up playing in the hand of our nemesis. Like, get out of here. And then the James Madison game, we're recording this on Sunday, and they played Duke today, and they just were a train wreck. And it was really funny because before the game, anybody that saw it, they did a interview with the James Madison coach in the tunnel. And I mean, yeah, dude, guy's ready to run through a center block wall. He was like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care that we're playing Duke. They ain't Duke. You know, they ain't any good. It made them look like the damn dream team out there. I mean, they might have lost. They lost by about 40 and probably should have lost by 80. So yeah, I just thought that was just the way it works. But
the one thing I will say, and the problem with me in these brackets is like I talk myself into being like James Madison can beat Duke, and then I start overanalyzing. Well, if this happens. Listen, they got to like, hey, James Madison. Then I'm like telling myself James Madison is, by the end of this analysis, I'm like, James Madison might win the whole thing. They're going to destroy Duke. Hot. Yeah. I did it last year with Oral Roberts. I had Oral Roberts beating Duke in the tournament. It always happens. Like my heart is just like, they can beat them. And I talk myself into it. But obviously they didn't have it tonight.
Let me ask you about this. All right. So forget all the analysis a little bit. And look, you got Duke, you got State, you got Carolina in the Sweet 16. I don't know the last time that's happened. I don't know if it's ever happened because State hadn't been there in 40 years or something like that. And like back when you had to like, I think they were riding horses to the game back then. But I think that all three of them being good predates when you or definitely post it, whatever. I mean, you used to have to win the ACC to go to the tournament, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think theoretically it could have happened anyway. But I thought in general, the first, Kentucky losing, that was definitely the biggest upset, hands down. Wisconsin losing was a big upset, but everybody was like, all right, it's Wisconsin. Like, who cares? Mm-hmm. Grand Canyon was a 12 seed, but St. Mary's was the 5 seed. There really wasn't like a huge upset. There weren't like a bunch of buzzer beaters and stuff. I don't know, man. It felt really chalky. And in a sense that not necessarily that every favorite won. I mean, Oregon beat South Carolina. It's like, okay, but these aren't nobodies. Everybody was on Samford, and we feel like Samford should have won that game. Everybody was on McNeese, and McNeese got blown out. Our boy Andy was all over New Mexico. Your boy Sleep Dog was all over Clemson. Clemson just blew him out. No Colgate toothpaste on Baylor. Like, I mean, there wasn't really anything. And then your ones and 16s and your 2s and 15s. I mean, they just got the storm door blew off in those games. So I don't know, man. What do you think about that from a fan perspective? I don't want to say it's boring because it's March, but it definitely, like, the madness part to me, it was sort of like, all right, well, I'm still watching. But I think the best games were the first 4.
Yeah, the first 4. Well, you take away Virginia. Boy, I tell you what, the street cred.
That ruined it forever.
Yeah, I mean, ACC street cred just went out the window when that Virginia game. And God, that's a bad look. Tony Bennett's going to have to do something. All right, Sleep. So
Clemson,
the best
Baylor's
game,
2 points right now, too, by the way. Because my thing I was getting ready to go into is you went all in on how the ACC, people were talking shit about the ACC all year. Virginia, notwithstanding, if Clemson can manage to hold on here, I mean, now all of a sudden you got 5 teams in the ACC made a tournament and 4 of them in the Sweet 16. I mean, even if just 3 go. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and also you've got to laugh at the SEC. I mean, the analysts, the data, the analytics said, hey, this is a good conference. First of all, no one ever talked about how we split head-to-head matchups when the SEC versus ACC challenge happened. And all of a sudden they're talking about how bad of a down year it is for the ACC. You know what? Just like tradition, we got big dogs. And if Clemson pulls through, we're going to have a lot of teams in the Sweet 16. And I know the media, they won't mention it, but they'll continue to talk about how some of these teams were underseeded, wrongly seeded. They'll make excuses for them, but the SEC has been an absolute joke outside of Tennessee. Alabama's probably going to pull it off, and I'll probably regret saying that. I don't feel too comfortable talking about that right now because we could play an SEC team in LA.
Yeah, speaking of superstition,
yeah, and But the ACC is not getting the credit it deserves. But to me, the best game of the whole tournament was Creighton versus Oregon. I was watching that last night. I was like blown away. They went into double overtime.
That was a good game.
Yeah, and listen, Oregon should have won that in regular,
regulation.
Yeah, regulation.
Regulation.
That's a weird word. A tough one for me to know. I'm not even trying to do it 15 times. They should have won the game somehow. Creighton found a way to get it into overtime, another overtime. They hit big shots. In the second overtime, Oregon was just like, we're packing it in. Creighton just blew the doors off of them. And also, I was super excited about that because I think Creighton may be going to the Final Four or something.
I got them in the Final Four. And, dude, UConn looks unstoppable. Granted, look, they ain't played anybody. Their game just started against Northwestern, up 17-4. I mean, they're going to win by 30. Mm-hmm. I think Houston, they have A&M later tonight. They look good. Creighton look good. I mean, the by and large, the top seeds have looked really, really good. I mean, Purdue just absolutely smoked whoever they played today. And that's that's the weird thing here is like it's been such a year where we talked about how much parity there was and how I said a million times that I thought the national champion this year is going to have 6 or 7 losses, and they might, but it also looks like you might have a Final Four 1 seeds in it, or at least 1s and 2s, because that's going to happen if most of the lower seeds get knocked out. And this dude Clemson just pulled up from the parking lot. That's a pretty risky 3. We're a minute 36 left here. This is big for Sleep's bracket because I cooked old Andy on our last pod. Sorry, Andy. Oh, no way they call that offensive foul. Wow. That's another thing that's bothered me with this whole stuff. These whole bump to the chest and the dude flies into the third row and then they call it. This is a really bad spin move, flop, fadeaway jump. They call it on a kid from Clemson, man.
Some of these calls have been absolutely comical. And the problem I'm having with watching this tournament is like Izzo got really upset about a call the other night, and so did the assistants. They were chatting with the ref. The ref comes down and makes one of the worst calls I've seen. Tyson Walker tripped over his own foot and fell down. They gave him the call, and then the ref couldn't figure out who fouled him, and so he changed multiple players. And at one point, I was like, the call was so bad he doesn't even know who to call the foul on. And in my mind, I was just blown away. I was just like, hey, you know what? Like, you can make a call and Izzo can disagree with you. Doesn't mean you have to do a makeup call. It's just point blank obvious. And some of these officials, they've cleaned up the charging call, but some of these it's still pretty bad. But it's
now they have Clemson's trying to choke this one up, man. I'm watching it here on my iPad at the same time. Same time it's going down. There's a minute left. After I just said none of these games are exciting, the only one that happens that is exciting is while we're recording the pod. And I happen to have a lot of pride riding on this one. Clemson's got 3 dudes with 4 fouls. Good grief. Minute 2 to go. Baylor at the line, 66-63. Baylor's trailing with 1 shot. So we'll keep going with that. Alabama's up 8 at the half. Grand Canyon, they ain't got a chance of throwing the ball in the Grand Canyon and winning this game. I think but then again, you're going to wind up with the good teams here at the end, and that's part of the fun of it too. Is the upsets and the unknowns and the unexpecteds are great. But it's also pretty good to watch guys Purdue. Zach Edey is just those dudes scored 100-some points today. And it's just a lot in a college game. So just fun to watch some of these guys. Trying to think of what else is half in and half out. They just fouled him again, man. Now they're going back down the line and Baylor's shooting free throws to tie the game. One of the So obviously, let's get back to the Kentucky situation. Mm-hmm. Big loss, very big loss. In a vacuum, though, no bigger than a lot of the losses we've watched happen over the last 2, 3, 10, tournaments just happened to hit Kentucky. And you were saying before, like, old Big Blue Nation, man, they're going through it right now. I mean, Calipari's getting on there talking about how maybe reevaluate. That's PJ Hall fouled out. How they might reevaluate how they're doing things and all this sort of stuff. And, Kentucky fans are trying to fire Calipari. I mean, where do those guys? I think a lot of people be interested to know your thoughts on Big Blue Nation in Kentucky as it stands right now.
You know what? The media had built up this narrative that Kentucky is built for the tournament. And, I was thinking in my mind, there's no team, I don't care how talented, how young, how experienced, that if they didn't play defense in the regular season, they're not just going to flip a switch when it comes tournament time and just start to play defense. And the thought that, the media and a lot of analysts had on Kentucky was like, their ceiling's super high. They can score. They have scoring outputs. They have a lot of different weapons, but they don't play defense. Well, listen, you know what? And also, youth doesn't win in the tournament. Older teams, more experienced teams, they're winning right now. And Calipari's, his system is a little dated, like these 5-star recruits, and also the fact that he says he gets these guys and he's more concerned with like making sure that they're, ready for the NBA, and, he's trying to develop these guys. Listen, most of these recruits, they were on the draft boards before they even committed to Kentucky. It's not like Calipari took Anthony Davis and made him an NBA player. Anthony Davis was going to be an NBA player if he set out for 3 years and then entered the draft. All right. He was going to get picked. I mean, he didn't develop these guys, and the whole, like, that whole slogan or whatever, that recruiting pitch to me is kind of dying down a little bit. And the thought that Big Blue Nation doesn't care about winning, they just care about getting NBA, that's comical. Listen, they want to win. They're hungry. His tournament success has been like a huge failure. Kentucky's not going to get, like, they're not going to accept getting bounced in the first or second round. They're too good of they have too good of a tradition and all this stuff. But listen, Calipari's going to be there next year. And the thought that somebody's going to, dish out $34 million to buy him out to get a new coach. Listen, there's not a lot of, appealing coaches out there right now. Like, who are you going to hire? Like, Billy Donovan's not coming to coach Kentucky. He's not going to take
Phil Jackson ain't coming.
Yeah. Phil Jackson ain't coming. Steve Kerr. I mean, like, all these big name guys at Big Blue Nation, like, hey, we got to get Cal out. Okay, you get Cal out. Who are you going to replace him with? Like, there's not a lot of, big splash names out there to take his spot. So I think they're going to stick with him. But I do think that Calipari is going to change some things up. I mean, I think he's got to hit the portal, obviously. And Big Blue Nation has always made it a point, hey, we got a great recruiting class coming in. That only works for so long after so many failed seasons. Like, you just can't say that after getting bounced in the first round 5 years in a row. Like, it's just like that saying gets old. And, it's at some point they're going to have to start winning. Calipari is taking a little pressure. They're going to give him a lot of criticism, but you know what? He's going to be coaching Kentucky next year based off that contract. Nobody's dishing out $34 million. And there's no one in there that's going to, make a big splash to take his spot. That's just my opinion. I think they're going to hit the portal and get some guys, maybe some more experienced, and they're obviously going to make, a point of emphasis to start playing defense. And that's where Kentucky turns it around.
Tigers, baby, game over. I'm telling you, man. Sleep dog. I don't get much right, but I got that one right. I'm with you 100%, and it's an interesting thing because I didn't realize, I was just looking at this, the last time Kentucky won a national championship was 2012. I mean, it's been over a decade.
Oh, yeah.
The last time Duke won a national championship was 2015. Like, and the thing of it is those two teams in particular, to me, are the ones that stand out of, like, buying into the sort of one and done. Look, dude, if Zion had come to Carolina, I'd have been over the moon. If Anthony Davis had come to Carolina, I'd have been all about it, right? So I'm not dogging that. But what I am saying is, like, it's really interesting. You brought up a great point. You look at the guards in the NBA that went to Kentucky, and it is like who's who of. I mean, these guys are awesome players, like awesome NBA players.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing to think about because now, like Carolina, our history is built, on Jordan and James Worthy, and then you got Carter and Jameson and Wallace, and like a lot of, I mean, sure, there's the great college players, but I think for most Carolina fans, Jordan is the start, or the at least the barometer, right? And like a lot of great players came after him. And now, I mean, let's think about who the best Carolina NBA player has been. I mean, you got Vince Carter, and Rasheed Wallace was great. I mean, like, when's the last time you had a Hall of Fame guy or like a perennial all-star come out of Carolina? And it's like, we still put guys in the league and they have great careers. And I think that that's something that, a casual NBA fan does not have an appreciation for what a guy being in the league for 12, 13 years is like. I mean, that ain't easy at all. Guy that has a career like Harrison Barnes or like Danny Green or like Wayne Ellington, these are long tenured guys. And it feels like Carolina bought into hey, instead of giving me that top guy, give me 3 or 4 guys a year out of the top 100 that have an IQ that might stay here 3 or 4 years. And then the transfer portal, to be quite honest with you, I think the transfer portal is something that just played better to that mindset and kind of fell in anybody that adopted its lap, right? I think the transfer portal's changed a lot of stuff. And I think it just makes a lot more sense for a team like Carolina, where you can lure a kid, that's going to be that kind of guy and fit him in a system, as opposed to trying to get a guy that's like, well, we got this hot shot freshman coming in. He's going to be a one and done, but he plays the 2 also. And I'm going to try to get, Ingram doesn't play the 2, but like, guy plays in front of Ingram. This guy's a stretch 4, power forward, whatever. And like Ingram's he's not going to come here if he's got to sit behind that kid. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's just really interesting to me. Like, if you're a college basketball fan, what do you want? Right. I think you want both, right? You want to win national championships, and then you want Kobe and LeBron and all these guys to go to your school. But it's just time and time again, we're seeing that it's not working that way, man. Like, all the best players in the NBA either go to a college like Kentucky and they're great, but they don't do anything in college, or in terms of winning, or they went some offshoot somewhere and just dominated. And then now they're perennial star in the NBA. I don't know, man. It's just an interesting dynamic. And I just wonder whether or not you're ever going to see again a program that pumps out just like all-stars and wins national championships, at least 1 or maybe even 2 a decade.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. And you would think at some point, especially when the COVID year goes away, I think that style and that, like, I think it will become effective again. But when these guys can play 5 years, and 25-year-olds, 26-year-olds that are playing in college basketball, like, they have such an advantage over a 19-year-old or 20-year-old because their bodies, their experience are just physically stronger and more experienced. It just gives them such a advantage, and they're much more appealing because they're more plug and play right now. And, it's also, you've got to think about in the portal era where guys just transfer and are moving from programs to programs, how much development is going on. Traditionally you see a lot of freshmen really take a lot of, development and improve over the years. In college basketball in particular, like, if you follow, you're a diehard Carolina fan, Kentucky, Kansas, whatever, you usually have these freshmen that come in and you see them improve, and like, you're so passionate about it because, by the time they're a senior, they're a different player. They're having huge impact. You can see them, making these big time plays, but you remember when they're a freshman, kind of like how much work they had to put in. And programs don't have that developmental phase like they used to. And they're not able to coach kids because everyone's leaving. If they don't like the situation, hey, I'm going somewhere else. And I think that's where the portal area, we've got to really discuss, like, if we want what's best for the kid, like, we've got to figure out, like, we've got to make this portal situation a little smoother. You listen, opening up this portal during the tournament where guys can enter the portal during the tournament, and also these teams, these assistant coaches that are coaching in the tournament, to have to be recruiting in the portal right now. It's an absolute joke. This is a no-brainer. Hey, just, we're going to push this timeline back until the college basketball season is over. That's like a common sense change that needs to happen, but it hasn't happened. It's the same way last year. And we said at the same time last year, the portal shouldn't open during the tournament, but here we are this year, portal's open.
And it's interesting too, because as I sit here now, I'm watching the NBA game. I watch Kuminga. I love Kuminga, but his story is actually one that kind of makes a lot of sense in this conversation, because look, if you go to the NBA, you're going to get, if you go to the NBA and you go to a situation where you can develop, like, there's a good chance you're never going to win anything, because you're going to be in a team that stinks. I mean, you see it happen over and over again. These guys come out and they go score 30 a night, right? But their team isn't any good, and all they learn is how to score or how to, like, stuff the stat sheet, right? There are exceptions, right? You get a situation like in Oklahoma City. You got Wembanyama, who just, God, I would love to just have Wayne Ellington back on here and just roast me. I mean, for one of the all-time terrible takes in the history of sports, me saying Wembanyama would bust. I mean, that guy might be better than MJ. But the point is like, these guys, don't develop in the NBA, man. They just don't. There's no time for it. There's no room for it. Like, if you're going to win, like, you either have to be, I mean, like, you see Anthony Edwards as a great example. I think Anthony Edwards he's the next, in my opinion, big, huge star in the NBA. Like, Jason Tatum, great player. He's not going to hold a candle to Anthony Edwards when it's done, in my opinion. He's a guy that, like, only went to school for a year, but he was already just a phenom, right? But some of these guys, like, there's nobody that really comes to mind right now I'll be 100% honest, I haven't heard of anybody. I don't know who any of these young guys are anymore that would come in college basketball right now that are going to be a one and done that I will have heard of. I mean, when they come into the league. And if they are, and none of them are going to be Anthony Edwards. None of these guys are going to come in and make a big impact. So it's like, if that's the case and you get paid to stay in college, like, why not develop there? I mean, and I get it, right? You get paid in college, but you ain't getting paid, $15 million in college. It's just an interesting paradigm that I think is widening in college basketball. It's like, college basketball is like one of two things. You either want bragging rights that you win, or you want bragging rights that you push people to the NBA. But then you push people to the NBA, and how often do they win? I mean, look at Zion. Like, dude, he's had a great season. I think Pelicans are a good team. Brandon Ingram, killer player. And I'm picked on two Duke guys, but you got like Devin Booker, great player out of Kentucky, great player. But Suns ain't gonna win it. And I mean, he's got some of the best players in the world on his team. I don't know, man. It's like, what do you want? I don't know, dude. I think I've said I don't know. Can't tell. I don't know. It's just an interesting thing to me. What does a fan want out of a college basketball program? And I've had to make the decision myself. It's like, you know what? I went to Carolina. I want to win.
Yeah.
And, hopefully we get some guy that shows up and becomes the next big thing. But sometimes you just got to pick one or the other. And I'd much rather be in Carolina's shoes than Kentucky's shoes, is I guess where I'm going with that.
And Sleep, you're right. You want to win. And I think what you're trying to say is, like, listen, there's a formula to winning, okay? It's not like you just show. Like, it takes discipline, okay? It takes being coachable. It takes, chemistry, teamwork, all that stuff, and super important to a team, and also the development of a person and player. And part of the reason we've got to figure this NIL and portal situation out is because coaching is great for kids, and you can never underestimate the impact. Like, a lot of Carolina fans won't like it, but Coach K had a lot of impact on his players. He was a hard coach. Coach Williams, the same way. All these great coaches, they coached, and they also were great disciplinaries, okay? And that's super important for kids to be able to accept criticism, being disciplined, and also doing things it takes to win. Sometimes, you have to take a lesser role. Sometimes you have to do your part, and you still have to find ways to improve your game. But also, these coaches have a huge impact in having that discipline. You can tell. That's why I always said when I was in the NBA, I could tell like these one and done guys, and you could see like some of these 4-year guys, and you could tell a big difference in their coachability and how they pay attention, their discipline, and all this stuff. It has a huge impact. And I think 4 years under a great coach or program really developed a player and a person. I think it made them much better in both aspects. And I think college basketball was really good for that. And it's an aspect that they may miss out on and is being undervalued because a lot of kids are just looking at taking money. And the other thing I will touch on, listen, Zion's going to be the first pick in the draft before he ever went to Duke. It doesn't matter. He would have gone to Grand Canyon and still been the number one pick. It's not like Duke developed him.
Right.
Listen, he was a talent. Okay, he was going to be number one pick regardless of where he went. And that's the case with a lot of Kentucky, Duke, and sometimes North Carolina players. Listen, Marvin Williams was going to be a top pick in the draft just because he was so talented. And, a lot of these programs get these guys, but it doesn't mean that I think it's false advertisement when they say we develop guys for the NBA. No, that guy was an NBA player because of his his physical qualities and how athletic and how skilled he is. And I think that sometimes gets, overlooked, and other people get the credit for that. And I think it's wrongfully deserved. And that's just my opinion on it.
And those super top dogs are anomalies too, like Zion and Anthony Davis, and even guys like Devin Booker. Like, look, man, those guys, that's not who I'm really talking about. It's just interesting to me to see, like some of the programs that, I think the NIL will lessen the one and done because those fringe guys. But that's the thing. I kind of lost my train of thought, but that's what I was kind of going to end on is I just wish that kids could see the difference between your rookie contract and getting out of it. You know what I mean? And I think those guys that go and they stay a couple years and are NBA players, some people work their way into it.
Yep.
Some guys are the anomalies that are going to be a lottery pick if they out of middle school, out of 10th grade. But there's a lot of guys that are like in the gray area that over the last 10 years have left a little early. And there's several that come to mind and makes you wonder, like, I get it. You're within arm's reach of that dream and that money.
Yeah. And
I ain't saying I would do anything different, but it's been hard. It's hard for somebody like that to be patient and say, well, if I spend another year or two developing, how many of those guys that didn't make it out of their rookie contract would have played 10 or 12 years? Like, I think a decent amount of people.
Absolutely.
So, and so that's what I kind of look at Carolina. Like, that's one of the things I'm most proud of as a fan of Carolina and of the NBA is how they prepare. Look, the vast majority of these guys, there's like 10 dudes, 15 dudes in the league that are like in a league by themselves.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of those dudes, it don't matter where they, like you said, it could have gone to Grand Canyon.
Yeah. And
so, yeah.
One last point, Sleep. And a lot of people don't realize this. And also there's a conception out there right now that when kids get the opportunity to go to the NBA, they've got to take it. Like, hey, you've got to really capitalize on this. Tim Duncan went to Wake Forest for 4 years. He ended up arguably being the best power forward to ever play the game. So don't ever like think that you've got to go early just because you've got to capitalize on this opportunity. Listen, you got to believe in yourself. I think Tim Duncan's a great example of a guy who went to college for 4 years and also ended up being one of the best players to ever play the game. So I think he's a great example that, hey, you don't have to be a one and done. Like, you can go to college for 4 years and still be a good NBA player. I think there's a misconception about that right now as well.
Yeah, I agree. Didn't realize we were going to take that path. I'm glad we did. Just checking the scores one last time before we get out of here on the Clemson, man. Andy, I don't know what you're doing out there, buddy. Go ahead.
I want to talk about one subject.
All right.
And we're not going to have another pod before this game if it does happen. So Caleb Love and UNC.
Oh, yeah.
Showdown in LA to go to the Final Four. What are your thoughts on that game? And also, do you think that it's going to be a majority of Pac-12 crowd in attendance for that LA game.
Second question's easy. You do? I don't. I don't know who. Maybe. I guess Arizona's out there, and I just think Carolina's going to travel well for that one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to your point, Clemson is going to play Arizona. I think as much as I've been on Clemson, I think Arizona's definitely going to be the odds-on favorite in that one. And unless old Grand Canyon can make a run, and I'd love to see that, because I'll be honest, yeah, the whole SEC jinx and notwithstanding, I ain't gonna lie, I wouldn't mind playing a Grand Canyon to go to the. I guess that would put us in the Elite Eight,
Mm-hmm.
and then so would we play them in the Elite Eight to go? Okay, I got you. I got you to go to the Final Four. Sorry, I'm looking at the bracket and it's all. So, yeah, that could very much happen. The game. This is my God's honest opinion on that game. I think we'll show well. I think there's plenty of Carolina fans out there on the West Coast. I feel like it would be. Where would they play it, at the Chase Center? No, you said in Hollywood.
No, I was saying Los Angeles, just
in
because
LA?
Hollywood's in LA. Yeah, the game's going to happen in LA. I'm not sure if it's at the Crypto or wherever it's called now.
So here's my honest opinion about that game.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be the easiest Carolina game for me to watch of consequence in a long time, because as a fan, you want to win every game, and you're stressed out until, we could be up 15 with 3 minutes to go, and you're still sitting there like, oh God, like, how are we going to blow it? Like, yelling at Hubert and yelling at whoever, right? Like, something different.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the one game, man. I like Caleb Love so much that if we lost that game, it would break my heart. But then at least I'd have a clear, like, conscience about being happy for the team that beat us. And because if Carolina doesn't win it, I hope Caleb does.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think fans can ever repay him for what he gave us. In that Final Four game. I'm kind of going back here and looking to see what happens with so you got Duke and State in the same. That's the wild one to me, is they could wind up playing in the Elite Eight. Wouldn't that be funny if State beat them to get? Duke would have no leg to stand on after that. But they got Houston coming up. State's got Marquette. It's hard for me to pick against a Houston Marquette game after that one. But yeah, that's how I feel about it. I think Arizona's a good team. I think they will be the best team, even if we were to if we beat Alabama. I still think Arizona's hands down the best team we will have run into. And then you're probably going to have either Illinois, Iowa State. I would imagine Iowa State comes out of that, be my pick, and then UConn, whether they play San Diego State or Yale, they're going to beat the hell out of either one, and then they'll probably beat Iowa State. So yeah, you got to imagine shit would get real, as they say. We'd play Arizona and then turn around and play UConn.
Well,
and then have the championship.
I just want to say Caleb's had a really good year. He's Pac-12 Player of the Year. Obviously, RJ Davis, ACC Player of the Year. So, this transfer, this is a situation that worked out.
Oh yeah,
well for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of them. There was a lot of headlines, a lot of rumors, and the committee, they're known for setting these types of matchups. Where there's some drama, there's some history involved. This is going to be an interesting matchup. And, with Caleb's mentality, listen, he could go for 4 or he could go for 40.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends. And
he's going to go. That's for sure.
This is a game to kind of highlight. This is going to be another big time one, Sleep. And it's going to be a lot of drama. And I think the media is going to build up, everything that this team went through last year and what they didn't accomplish. There's going to be a lot of emotions. I'm going to if we do win this Sweet 16 game and then go to Elite 8, Arizona wins, and we have that matchup, it's going to be a good one to watch. And I think also everyone's going to be paying attention to kind of see, what the, these emotions or what the reactions are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a lot of emotions involved because believe me, Caleb's going to want to get 40.
Yep.
RJ's going to want to get 40. Armando's going to want to dominate. It's going to be a great game to watch if it does line up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, hell, even if Clemson makes it, ACC matchup to the Elite Eight, I mean, you got to get by whoever we have in front of us. But that's the unfortunate reality of recording our pod once a week is by the time we come back, we're either going to be on our way to the Final Four or pissed about something. But yeah, dude, that's going to be, I mean, that's one I think everybody's kind of had on their mind since the bracket was set is the possibility of that happening. And it'll be a hell of a game. I mean, that's a heavyweight fight. That'll be the best college basketball game of the season to that point.
100%.
Hands down.
Yeah, it's going to be a heavyweight fight. So
I hope we see it.
Oh, I'd love it.
I don't know if it'll be on I don't know how the schedule shakes out yet. If we'll play that one on Sunday night, we might have to drink a little coffee and stay up late.
And also, let's not forget, Steve Robinson's the assistant coach at Arizona, longtime assistant at UNC. So he's done a good job there. I just want to point that out at Arizona. So I'm happy.
Absolutely. Part of the committee, I would imagine, that brought Caleb to Chapel Hill anyway.
Yep.
I bet Caleb went to committed to Michigan. I think everybody forgot about that. Everybody thought he was going to Michigan, and he turned around and went to Arizona. I bet he's happy with that decision.
Oh, yeah.
Golly.
I would take Arizona over Michigan any day of the week.
Yeah. I mean, sun shining out there, no snow. Final, like, Sweet 16 versus
Michigan
being in the snow and
coach,
not. Yeah. Oh, man. Anyway. So, I think that's about it, man. You got anything else, Big Hog? Before I get out of here, I have one other thing because I forgot all about it. I mean, we got Final Four and we forgot to tell you guys about Autograph, our sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you knew, but they were co-founded by Tom Brady, the GOAT. Autograph Fandom app gives you access to best college football, basketball, all kinds of content, fan challenges, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets for diehard fans, all for doing things you already do as a fan, like following your team in the news and listen to this podcast and more. Download the free Autograph app in the Apple App Store. Use referral code SHWW. That's referral code SHWW. See you at the game. Of course, it's in our pod notes. It's in the YouTube description. It's in our Instagram links and all that stuff. If you don't know by now, I don't know what you clearly ain't been listening to the pod, but you need to download the app. It's got all the Carolina stuff you could possibly deal with. I just saw they dropped some $16 tickets to California for the game. So, I mean, now's a great time to get it. You want to go out to I ain't going to pay for the plane ticket, I don't think. But if you happen to be in earshot and can get to the stadium, I mean, $16. Sounds like a pretty good deal. $16 for that's $1 per team in the Sweet 16 by my math. Anyway, now, and get your crab cakes. You got anything else, Big Hawk?
Stay safe.
Stay safe.